端午节, Dragon Boat Festival. What does it mean to you and what does it mean to people all around the world? And to the many people who are celebrating this coming week, what does it mean for them? Well, today we're going to discover and unravel the history and the culture behind 端午节 and the mystery behind this idea of the dumpling or the 粽子. And then what relevance does it bring to us as leaders, as communicators, as owners, as parents even? How does this bring relevance to us in our communication every single day? Well, I'm really happy to share with all of us something really exciting because I've just, today, all around the world, Chinese are celebrating 粽子, right, or 端午节. And one of the celebrations is that families coming together, enjoying this 粽子 and in different shapes and different forms. So if you're wondering what on earth is 粽子and what does it look like, what does it feel like? Well, it's this little rice glutinous dumpling that is really steamed, and sometimes in the middle of it there's ingredients that are really either they're sweet or savory, but really it's traditional kind of dish. But all around the world we celebrate it, and in different parts of the world Chinese have different types of 粽子. Alright, so today I'm going to kind of unravel for us what that means to all of us. Let's check this out. Well, the Dragon Boat Festival, as we know, it's called 端午, right, or 端午节 for that festive season. It's one of the oldest festivities, not only in China but all throughout the years, with a history of more than 2,000 years. Now, the China's history, it's more than 5,000 years old, so this is happening sometime in the middle of the historical backdrop of China. Now, in 2006, the traditional festival was listed as one of China's national intangible cultural heritages. And in 2008, it was recognized as a public holiday in Chinese mainland. In Singapore, this is not quite true yet. So in Singapore, we don't celebrate this as a public holiday. In Singapore, we have Chinese New Year, but around the Chinese community in Singapore do celebrate 端午节 by having dumplings at home, but it's not a holiday. But in China, in mainland China, in Taiwan as well, they have this as a celebration for themselves. So really interesting. So you're wondering what is this dragon boat? Is it just seeing people racing on dragon boat? Not quite, because I'm going to give you guys a little insight into the backdrop and the story of 端午节. Let's check this out. So many years ago, there was this person, his name is called Qu Yuan, a Chu state officer and a poet who lived during the Warring State periods between 475 to 221 BC. So before the reunification of China under the Qing dynasty of 221 to 206 BC. And he was exiled after opposing his king's decision to ally with the neighboring state of Qing. And when Chu was finally conquered by Qing, he committed suicide by drowning in the river on the 5th day of the 5th month in the Milo River. Now, the Chu people who admired Qu Yuan for his loyalty and integrity threw rice dumplings into the river to feed the fish, so they would not eat the body of their poet hero. And the rice dumpling here is the 粽子. Now, people then started dragon boat racing using colorful dragon boats to crash of the sound of drums with the intention of scaring on the fishes. Since then, the 5th day of the 5th month of the lunar calendar is celebrated as the Dragon Boat Festival. People who hold dragon boat races prepare 粽子, sticky rice dumplings and bamboo leaves in memory of cheese, righteousness, and beautiful poems. Oh, that's really beautiful. Now, you might be wondering, in the Chinese culture and heritage, we often celebrate around food. The food items kind of symbolizes certain elements for us. During the Chinese New Year period or the Lunar New Year period, we have things like the love letters, we have things like the different pastries and different cakes, we have things like the oranges that we offer, the things like red packets. So everything, there's a significance to it. And one of the beautiful things in terms of communicating the historical, the stories, the meanings and traditions is the idea that all the different items are metaphors, are metaphoric expressions of meanings of what the Chinese hold true across the multi-generations. Now, even in your own culture, you might have some of those elements as well down through history. There's certain ritual that we go through, certain traditions that we go through, certain things we celebrate, and this has its roots many years ago. So today it takes the form of dragon boat racing, and I remember when I was in the polytechnics, we used to go for dragon boat racing. We used to go for canoeing, and it's kind of a popular sport right here in Singapore as well. There are races in terms of dragon boat races. But when we look back and we say, hey, how did this race came about? It came about through this exemplary role of this poet named Qi, and it's something really interesting for us to consider how that impacts us as individuals and also descendants of the Chinese history. Now, this gives us some clues as to why people do what they do. And this gives and when we look back and say, wow, history is so rich with a lot of meaning, a lot of interesting insights. Now, I want to read to us a little comic that's taken from a book. It's kind of interesting about this, and this may give you some light into the story of Qi, right? And he says this, and he was a great poet during that time, and he says, "My king, why do you abandon the capital, causing the people to scatter? Soon the state of Chu will come to an end." And there's a sound of the night, of the owls, and says, "Father, you didn't sleep the whole night." And the father says, or Qi says, "Bring me my new robe, I'm going out." So Qi was going by the river and he saw the river there and says, "All around the state is in chaos and only I'm at ease. The people are suffering while I am in seclusion. The situation is intolerable. It's better to flow with the river and bury myself in the body of fishes." And off he jumped in. Qi has jumped over the river. Let us try to recover his body and let not the fish eat it. Bring the drum along the sound and it will frighten the fishes away. It's already dark and we have not found the body. Let us go home and think of a method. How is that we can't find the body when there's so many of us? I think perhaps Qian doesn't want his pure being to remain in this chaotic and corrupt world. But in the Milo River, there's so many fishes, he may have ended up in the stomach of the fish already. The following day, I suggest every household wrap rice in bamboo leaves and throw them into the river to feed the fishes so that they will leave Qian's body alone. Sounds sensible? Later, to commemorate Qian, the custom of holding dragon boat races on the 5th day of the 5th month and eating the dumplings became widespread. So there you have. That's how the story came about. It's a very interesting story, and that's how today, when we see in the modern terms, people having the different variations. You have vegetarian dumplings, you have dumplings that have savory feelings. In the past, it used to have some sweet rice dates into that savory fillings of the rice dumpling to commemorate those seasons. And in fact, many parts of the world, they still celebrate by the dragon boat racing to commemorate this day, the 5th day of the 5th month. So what does this mean to all of us? Well, for one, it's now we begin to appreciate the different cultures around the world, and I hope that I can bring on to this channel different cultures so we begin to learn with a sense of diversity and inclusion and understanding that their histories, their richness and stories around them. Now, to me, one of the things that I think as a coach, I consider, hey, how does this bring relevance to me as a coach? How does this bring relevance to me as a leader, as a business owner, as a parent? How do I make sense of this? How do I communicate this? And why is it that stories like this have such great impact? Well, there's a few lessons that I've learned through the stories of down through the years of the Dragon Boat Festival, and what I've gained is this: there are communication patterns in terms of the macro structure of cultures that has its true impact in helping us to relate to our families and values with our friends. Now, one of the great things in communities and friendships, as well as in your relationship with your own family and friends, are there things that we can talk about? Are there little rituals? Are there little traditions that we do? For example, some of you may have friends that you kind of meet them once every 3 months on this particular day where you meet in the same restaurant. We as human beings love the sense of meaning. What meaning makes to us, and it's so important. And this concept is what we call metaphorium, the engineering of metaphors that kind of relate to us. Think about this. You might have like childhood friends, and you guys always meet at the same coffee shop or the same hawker center, having that prata, having that cup of teh tarik, or having that cup of coffee or iced coffee, and it has become a ritual for you. That whole expression, it's a metaphoric expression of communication, because that brings a remnants, that brings the sense of meaning, identity, our historical relationship together, and a sense of trust. And that is very true in the Southeast Asia context, where people love people based on trust, and there's a whole sense of trust building. And you know what, my friends and my team in Koji Changes Lives, we love to meet each other for meals. Sometimes we meet at each other's places for a certain meal. I remember one of our teammates called Hazel, she loves to cook a lot, and so one of our teammates, Wilson, as well, enjoys the meals there. It's fantastic. And sometimes we might go out for a Japanese meal, or sometimes we might go out for like just hanging out at a certain place where we can have scrumptious Western food. food. So all these things actually are symbolic representation of the communication pattern. We think it's just having lunch, we think it's just having food, but no. In a Southeast Asian context, we always commune over food. Food has a very strong place in our hearts. So I have extracted 5 different points and 5 different lessons that I've gained from the festivities of Dragon Boat Festival. Let's take a look. So these are conversational lessons from Dragon Boat Festival or the Duan Wu Jie. Now, the metaphors as meaning makers. What does it mean? It means this, right? That there are metaphors and expressions in our daily cultures, daily walk. There are symbolic representations of things that we truly believe in. Things like Zong, which is a food, as an anchor and meaning connection. Anchoring across generations, where families come together, and we even have the sense that this food has its different flavors to adapt to the modern times taste. Even Dragon Boat race as well, right? Today you have young people building up their bodies, to really race in this competitive sport, and it brings a sense of camaraderie as well. Because in a Dragon Boat race, you got to race in tandem. It's not who's the strongest, who's the fastest, but can we race in synchronicity together? So there's so many metaphors and so many meanings underlying this that actually truly creates connection. Now, number 2, connection and relevance to the story. When we read stories like this, there's a sense that, hey, that's kind of interesting. It's quite a strange, but yet very, very relevant story where it tells us a sense of righteousness, a sense of purpose. And up to today, we ask ourselves, hey, why did this story stand the test of time? What about the story that connects the dots for all of us who share in the same culture? Down through, 1/3 of that's 1.5 billion Chinese around the world, and many of us are across the different parts of the world. We may not all be in the mainland China, but they're all spread around the world. So there is a sense of connection, relevance to a certain story point. Think about this. What is our human tribe's connection? Beyond just a certain cultural background, beyond a sense of race, beyond a sense of religion, what is that cultural thread that ties every single human being together? I reckon it's a sense of love, acceptance, and trust. Now, we also have this idea of historical, cultural, traditional references that is quite unique to each set, right? In Southeast Asia, in Singapore and Malaysia, and in Indonesia, we kind of celebrate Tuan Wu Jie, Dragon Boat festivals, quite similarly, because we're quite in the same region together. When you look at Vietnam, Thailand, and in China or in Taiwan or in Hong Kong, they have a different take on it. There's a different way to celebrate together, right? So there is some references that we can draw in as well. What about conversational anchors? Well, there are some elements like this as well. When we think about, hey, how those really create an impact and a sense of getting together, and also the mystery in the conversational flow. I love it. When we think about conversation, there's always a sense of mystery. And that's what catches us and draws us in. What makes conversations great is because there's mystery behind these conversations. There's like elements of, wow, what's happening? Oh, wow, what's behind those things? That's really drawing us in. And I love conversations like this because that is what we call metaphorium conversations, where conversations that doesn't just explain every single thing, but it's room for you to think about. There's room for you to consider and ponder on. And that's very true for even movies and shows where they have room for you to consider and think through what's really happening there. Okay, so that's something that I hope that gives us some insight. It's just a little of my thoughts around this whole festivities, and I'm going to share with you a little bit of how this zongzi looks like. Okay. Hey everyone, right here I have a zongzi, sometimes we known as dumpling or rice dumpling, and it's been something that in many parts of Asia that we celebrate and that we enjoy a lot. And the zongzi commemorates the historical poet Zhu Yuan. And this dish has kind of like appeared 5,000 years ago, and sometimes it's known as one of the most important foods in China as well. And many different parts of the world have their own different versions, and you may have salted egg on the inside, you may have chestnut, you have different renditions, and this is what here I have. It's the Noya version of it. So there's different iterations of that, especially in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, Taiwan, China, Vietnam. Every part of the world have it. So now, one of the interesting things about this is that the Chinese foods have often had deep roots in history. So as we take a look at what this is, it's going to be really interesting for us to explore. So let's take a look at how this looks like. And now notice even the strings as well has its own significance and meaning. So I'm just going to put the strings on one side here, and I'm going to unfold this for some of us who have never seen a zongzi. Okay, there you have. It's really, really delicious. And you can see it's wrapped in that leaf. Okay, there you go. Very nice glutinous rice, and it's really nice to have it a little bit warm. So there you have. Okay, awesome. Okay, hey everyone. So I have with me, I just opened up and peeled up the dumpling or the zongzi, and it's really interesting. I love this so much because there's so much rich history behind traditional foods like this, and I wouldn't even call this traditional food. I would call this like the essential food for every Chinese that is out there, and it's kind of like our heritage and we know our past. And there are many different variations of this. Sometimes you might have brown rice. Recently, there's a trend of getting the brown rice, glutinous rice, but really it's about packaging that ingredients right at the core of this rice while enjoying that zongzi. Right, so let's take a look at this. My version here today that I have, it's the Noya version. Sometimes you might have the chestnut version, or you might have different versions of it. And different parts of the world has it a bit differently. I think in Singapore there's a different variations of it as well. Take a look. So this is the Noya version. Some chopped up mushrooms and delicious pieces here. Really nice. So if you haven't get a chance to try the zongzi, I recommend you give me the shot. So immediately you can really taste that nice aromatic flavors all the way inside. Now encapsulated within that is this thick, or not really thick, I think this rice dumpling or this glutinous rice that really encapsulates all the ingredients inside. It's really, really delicious. So if you've never tried this before, I would recommend you to give it a shot. This is called zongzi. There's a lot of places that sells this. If you have not been to Singapore, come and try this out in Singapore. We've got a huge variety of them. My grandma makes them as well. So tonight I'm going to try different versions of zongzi. Today it's where Chinese all over the world celebrate Duan Wu Jie, or sometimes we call this Dragon Boat Festival. It isn't just about racing the dragon boats that we see, but that's just a significant meanings to it. But it's also the idea of enjoying the zongzi. Okay, so let's check this out, right? The ingredients here, look at this. It's really, really delicious. So I want you to try this out if you've never got a chance to try. Now, the zongzi is so amazing. If you have never got a chance to try the zongzi, I will encourage you today or this week and experience what the zongzi feels like for you and your families. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up, share this with your friends, and I look forward to seeing you in one of our sessions really soon at Coaching Changes Lives.